Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Thank you for the invitation. We'll start. So, these are just our thoughts on the future of digital payments. So, to understand the future, I will first take you to the very brief history how payments and the transactions evolved over across. So, it was somewhere around 1920 or 1940 where the plastic started working out, where the charge cards were the first one to be used in Western economies. Uh, what wallet are doing today to Indian economy, the charge cards were as revolutionary at that point of time. And towards 1940, they started interoperability. In 1967, Barclays was the first one to introduce the ATM. Somewhere between 95 and 2002 is when the online payments and the acceptance of online payment started across the globe, and it was also beginning of the e-commerce as we know today. In 2002 onwards, the basic payment gateways which started. Now towards the turn of the century, this payment gateways started moving towards a more technology oriented, more user friendly, and rather than just a redirect model, they they started bringing in the convenience into the picture. Towards 12 and 15, when the e-commerce took a huge leap because of acceptance of internet as we know today, the marketplace models evolved. In India, wallets evolved, and the fast payments or the faster pay checkout options were introduced. This was the time when most of the payment gateways, including PayU, Citrus, we started working on lots of technology innovations. 2015 onwards, the broader acceptance of payment gateways or the transactions was moving from just a utility to the user experience, and that's where the smoother transaction flow was the key word where we started looking into. Uh, this was also the time when wallets started evolving in India. They were born out of a necessity because that was somewhere around 2012-13 when the second factor authentication was introduced by RBI, and people were more interested in giving their customer a checkout option which was faster, smoother. They didn't wanted them to wait to enter multiple parameters to get a payment processed. Now, just to give you a brief about how a payment gateway work in the real life, uh, while we have tried to make this image as a representative one, once the transaction starts, it first hits the merchant either on a website or his server. The transaction comes to the payment gateway, and from there to a bank, which we call acquiring bank. It again gets processed through Visa and Master systems, and the same flow is followed as a reverse for the confirmation. At the end of the process, merchant gets paid on a particular day, and then the transaction actually gets over. So for a customer, the transaction gets over in seconds. For a merchant, it might be a day or two. Now, moving on to what has evolved as a solution still today is the basic checkout. When I say basic checkout, these were the first ones where you click on pay now button, it goes to a page where you select the payment option, it captures the detail and does the payment. In most of the developer world, it would be called quick and easy or quick and dirty. So next we moved on to customized checkout. Customized checkout are the ones where you don't feel that you're moving out of a consumer or a merchant's portal for the payment, even though someone else, a third agency, is handling those payouts. These checkouts are more evolved, they are more intuitive to the consumer, and from a technology perspective, they are more complex as a solution. However, for a user experience perspective, they are much easier. However, as I said earlier, the problem of a second factor authentication and the complexity around it, we evolved using wallets. When the wallets as a concept were initially about P2P, it started as a merchant solution when merchants saw value for the smaller ticket size transactions, specifically where the customer authenticates himself once and the transaction moves faster going forward. Also, the next evolution was in the marketplace. When marketplace were aplenty, you have Amazon, Flipkart, name any bigger e-com merchant, and they go through the marketplace. There are multiple sellers. They handle multiple sellers payout on everyday basis. These solutions provide ease of use not only to the marketplace owners or the websites, it also provides them the comfort of doing the settlement. For example, if a transaction happens on xyz.com, which is a marketplace, there might be multiple sellers who are selling their goods in the same, which are being bought by the consumer under the single order and ID. However, when the payout has to be happened to the same seller, the marketplace need to split that payment. That's where the payment gateway and the solutioning comes into the picture, or the transactional solutioning comes into the picture. And we, PayU and Citrus were among the first one to introduce that as a solution to the market. I have also included bank-driven solutions, which were basically, I would say, still a centralized bank, which is RBI-driven, which was RTGS and NEFT, while the audience for the same was P2P or a person-to-person transaction or a business-to-business transaction. In certain cases, the same was used also as a P2M, where the consumer were used to transfer the money to the merchant using these methods. Same happened to IMPS. IMPS for a short while was also explored by NPCI for payments to the merchants. Another interesting part which we have seen evolve in recent past is invoicing. When I'm saying invoicing, these are the link-based payments. When a customer doesn't want to go to a website, or transaction is happening on an email, transaction is happening through an SMS, these links flow through those mediums. The consumer just clicks on that link, does an easy payment, and the transaction goes through. And the last but not the least is the UPI. I would be taking UPI in a bit depth going ahead. Uh, so, what lies in the future? So, payment as we know today has enough friction in it for every transaction. So, the more and more requirement would be to make it faster, smoother. The classic example on is of Amazon Go, which was recently launched or showcased in US, where the payment, while it was part of the transaction, it was not at all intrusive. It was so smooth that the customer doesn't even recognize that the payment is happening as part of the transaction. Another important trend is about the social payments. All of us use WhatsApp, Snapchat, Facebook, and whatnot as a social media. This media is not only for the information sharing, but they will soon become the places where the real commerce will also happen. These are the media where transactions will start happening, or they have already in some or other form has already happened. So those payments would be important part of the entire picture. Evolution and adoption of UPI. as I said, we will take it ahead in the next going ahead, but that's in quite an interesting journey it would be. One point is about infrastructure to support all digital and cashless or less cash economy. While there are many steps being taken by the government, by the quasi-government agency, and also lots of private players, and most importantly, many startups which are trying to drive towards this particular goal. The infrastructure to support all this stuff, including the knowledge to the end consumer, is something which is important, and that is something going to drive the market. Another trend is from payments to transactions. Today, when we do the shopping online or we do any purchase online or through our mobile, there are two stages to that transaction. We select the product and then we pay the product. More and more evolution will happen when the payment moves out as a part of the same process where the transaction is happening, which is selection of the goods or the selection of a product. And that would be the key to success for any smoother, faster checkout. Another important development that is happening is the India stack by the government and certain quasi-government agencies. There has been initial hiccups and all, but more and more number of people are getting involved there. More and more innovation is happening there. And just to take you through India stack specifically, sorry. India Stack is a set of APIs that government, businesses, developers, startups, they can use to make this transactions paperless, uh, presence without any physical presence, and to a greater extent cashless. So all the innovations that you see around Aadhaar identification, Aadhaar payments, UPI, they are driven under India Stack, and that would be a part which would be quite interesting to see evolve. Now moving to the UPI, as we all know, it's Unified Payment Interface. Uh, it's a method to do a direct bank transfer without even knowing someone else's bank account number. As of today, 27 banks are participating in this who are able to help you in creating the IDs about for UPI, which is called VPA, and also able to do a transaction on that. There are 7 banks which have participated in the process as only issuer bank, where they are allowing their customer to create the VPA on other apps and do a transfer. It's a very simple payment account process. You just download any of the UPI app, you create a VPA, which is virtual payment address. Behind virtual payment address, you just assign your bank account, create an MPIN, and you are good to go. How the checkout will look to you? On the checkout, select UPI. After selecting the product that you want to buy, use your VPA over there. On your UPI app, just authorize the transaction, and that's about it. There's nothing about second factor, third factor, fourth factor, because that particular transaction or that particular app you can carry it is on your phone, and it's as secure as it can get. It's a different transaction flow than the current payment instruments like credit card, debit card, net banking, because authorization is not happening on the app itself, it's happening on a separate app. Uh, as of today, all the PayU products, including PayU Money, Citrus, and PayU Biz, we offer PayU UPI as part of our standard integration. So Before we move into the live Q&A, we ask for certain questions. So to be submitted, we have certain questions. So we'll take them first.
Hey Ruchir, thanks for your insightful information. The first question will be: will growth of UPI supersede wallets, and what is the future of wallets?
Yeah. So yeah. As of today, I don't see that UPI will supersede the wallet. Yes, it will eat a chunk into that. Uh, the reason being UPI, you are able to hit your own account. So if I have to draw a parallel, it is more on the net banking. It's more into direct debit than a credit card or a debit card. Again, as I said, wallets were not a replacement of the transactional methods. They were addition to the transaction method to avoid a pain point, which was second factor authentication. So wallets, yes, in the current form, they are still relevant for the smaller transactions. UPI, yes, it has a niche cause today. It also depends upon how that evolution happens. Same way, wallet also may or may not be may or may not continue being relevant depending upon how their evolution happens. If there is a pain which they are able to solve in the payment properly, they will be relevant.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. Distribution of PayU experience in different apps. How to scale it?
Uh, I'm assuming few things in this question because I'm not so clear on that. Saying my assumption is that the question is about how the a particular experience or a checkout experience can be created on a various play platform. So PayU, as you know, has two different line of businesses. One is PayU Money and one is PayU Base. PayU Money is our offering on the small merchants, medium merchants. We are startup friendly and all. On a PayU Base side, it is more relevant to a evolved payment gateway with a deeper integrations and a more matured products, I would say, compared to PayU Money. But the again, the use cases I said are totally different. So however, in both the cases, you have we have the native SDKs which provide you the in-app experience for the payments without even moving out of your purchase experience. We in the same you have the custom browser kind of offering which allows you to do multiple innovations on your app. Third and important thing is we there is another pane of second factor verification of the Visa Master guideline, which is about CVV capture. PayU has a patented technology on that, which removes the pain of entering the CVV every time for the customer. Right. So there are multiple things. We are more than happy to connect with whoever is interested. You can drop us a line on let's talk at the payu.in or reach out to us on our phone numbers. We'll be more than happy to work with you guys to improve that.
Got it. So the next one is different options to make payment seamless like Amazon Go. What do you think about that?
Uh, Tough question, I would say. Amazon Go as a concept on the physical store was quite impressive. Uh, Replicating on a digital flow, as I said, there are multiple solutions that we have which can help you out, like SDKs, JS, ICP kind of a platform. Uh, Whether it would be as seamless as Amazon Go, the answer is doubtful yes. The reason doubtful yes is second factor authentication still remains in India. It is a mandatory regulatory thing. However, we have seen certain demos and internally also we are working on certain products which will remove pain so this authentication pain for the merchant as well as the customer to some level.
Correct. So the next question we have is: Challenges in adoption of solutions like UPI and Beam, etc.
Uh, Again, the challenge is not from the adoptions part of it. It's one on the infrastructure where not necessarily everyone has a data connection or the understanding of the product. However, both the government as well as the private players has been quite aggressive in promoting them, looking at the use case scenario specifically after demonetization. So infrastructure is the one of the biggest challenge I see. Second is about the knowledge of the product, and third is willingness or the habit of not using the hard cash in your transactions.
Understood. So the next one is, what is India stack? I think you have given a brief at the end before. So just you can just give a little more information.
Yeah, so as I said, India Stack is basically a common APIs that government, private businesses, developers, they are developing to authenticate, to transact without any need for a paper. So the vision that they have is about creating an economy where you don't need to sign any check, where you don't need to sign on anything to authenticate that you are XYZ as a person. Your biometrics on Aadhaar works as your common identity. It can common authentication, and the transaction based on that has been quite both again private players as well as government has been quite aggressive in adoption of that. And one of the very dear project at PayU also where we are doing lots of things around it to adapt it into our merchant payment ecosystem.
Understood. So how do you think we can safeguard the consumer privacy?
I will answer that question from the perspective of the online payments. Uh, for the online payment, the regulation, or I would say the certification of PCI DSS, which we at PayU and Citrus undergo every year, gives us a gives us lots of insights on how those transactional records has to be handled. If you ask about the consumer privacy, that is more from the side of how the communication, encryption on your website and other things will work on. From the payment side, a simple answer says it's PCI DSS adherence. A complex answer, we can go into those guidelines and answer that. But yeah, privacy would be an issue as a evolving thing again.
Got it. So the next one is USSD based payment solution best way to reach rural India?
I would say a personal view, but it's not necessary. Yes, your dependency on the data goes off in USSD based payment solutions. However, the short codes and the typos that looks sounds like earlier telegraph day when someone types in something, it has to be decoded on the other end to be transacted. So the best way is as simple it can be. Not necessarily those short codes and USSD would be the answer to that. But yes, in P2P kind of a market, it might be pretty good experience per se.
Ruchir, we have few more questions coming in right now. So, so Vikas Jaisal is asking, will PayU support Bitcoin?
Will PayU support Bitcoin? Yeah, we are doing certain initiatives for the Bitcoins. However, it would be on a case-to-case basis. Would be more than happy to explore and help you guys.
So Abhishek is asking what is your stand on different startups coming with Empower solutions? Will it work?
Uh, I will actually refrain from answering the question specifically because as PayU as a company, we believe in the digital payments more, and more than believe, it's our expertise is on that part. There are few good innovations which are happening over there, so it lots depends upon how the market reacts to that. Abhishek, I agree, but that's what I say. As PayU, at PayU be more focused on web and mobile-based payments. The physical kind of payments we are not much into.
So Dhatri is asking what kind of security issues we are facing today in fintech.
The easiest answer is the identity and the transaction theft. However, with every innovation, the new threats and challenges are evolving. So, but yes, the identity is the biggest thing which would be at the risk.
Understood. So Joel is asking what kind of outreach is required to get rural consumers onto digital payments. For example, can transactions be carried out via SMS?
So, Joel, on a transaction which are happening offline, which is where the consumer and the merchant are facing each other offline, it still might be relevant. On an online thing, it has its own challenges because just to give you an idea, if you go, if I'll just take liberty to go back to the earlier slide which we had. Yeah. So if you see the transaction, uh, just 1 minute. Yeah. So if you see the transaction response is given to the merchant in the real time, and hence SMS based, there would be a delay. Your dependency on the network at least twice, one towards the issuer bank and second from the issuer bank would be there. So it would be a tough technology to work on.
Durga Prasad is asking is PayU need credit card issued in India for registration with PayU to enable integration with merchants' website or social media sites?
I would put it, we require an India issued payment instrument. It can be a bank account where you can do a net banking transfer, you can do a debit card or a credit card. But yes, because of the local regulation, we require an instrument which is India issued.
Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Would PayU SDK ever be part of Segment.io?
Uh, Currently, it's not there. However, we are exploring few things. It may be part of the roadmap.
So we'll take one last question. So Tatveer asked, social media giant like Facebook is introducing social payments within their platforms. How will it affect on payment gateway?
Payment gateway still work on the process where it's merchant facing, whereas social media sites like Facebook, when they do this kind of innovation, it is more from the P2P businesses. So yes, if you're asking from those P2P kind of a transactions, there would be impact on it. But again, it also depends upon you want to go to a social site for your transactions, or you are more than happy to work with someone who is into purely into payments and not into social media, right? So it's a choice that merchant or a consumer will have, and when such kind of companies come into the space, it would be interesting to not only see how that space evolves, it also shows how much potential the space has.
So which I told one last question, but can we take two more last questions? They are interesting questions. So I have, Sandeep is asking, does PayU supports international cards on checkout?
Yes, subject to certain guidelines and all, we can. Would encourage you to write on let's talk at payu.in. We
So,
can take it forward from there.
so Durga Prasad is asking, PayU is different from PayU money in any manner. A lot of people have this question. So,
So both are payment processing platform. However, PayU Money, the product has been designed with for the requirements of a small and medium merchants or a very basic merchant, where they just want to accept the payments, right? There are very limited scope of customization and work on that. Whereas PayUBiz offers you the freedom to do multiple things, including the customization of not only look and feel but also from the process and the transaction flow.
thank you so much, Ruchir, for joining us at our first UpStart live series. On behalf of PayU, I would like to thank each one of you for participating in this webinar. For feedback and inquiries, you can reach out to us on let's talk at payu.in. We shall be happy to help you. Thank you so much again.